Welcome to the channel. This is SUNDOS Communication. My name is Adenaike Janet. Today we'll be looking at the profile of the first female king in colonial Nigeria, King Ahebi Ugbabe, who was a king and warrant chief of Enugu, Ezike, Nigeria. She was the only female king in colonial Nigeria. Her life is described by Nwando Achebe as a worker, a headman, a warrant chief, and ultimately a female king. She was a strong leader of her people, yet also a collaborator empowered by and serving the British colonial regime in Nigeria. Ahebi Ugbabe was born in Enugu, Ezike, an Igbo community in the late 19th century, to Ugbabe Ayebi, a farmer and palm oil tapper, and Aneku Ame, a farmer and a trader in Umo, Ida, Enugu, Ezike. She had two brothers and no sisters. She lived with her mother's families in Unadu for a brief period of time before she later had to escape to Igala land. Ahebi was running from an order for her to be married to a female deity as punishment for her father's sins. This punishment was known as Igo Ma Ogo, to become the in-law of a deity. Her family had gone through a series of unfortunate events when she was 13 and 14. The farm yielded little, illness spread, and trade was slow. Her father had gone to a diviner, someone who was perceived as knowing the unknown. This man had correlated the events to the wrath of the goddess Ohi. Due to his crime during her forced exile, Ahebi became a commercial sex worker and used this form of work to her advantage by aligning herself with powerful men such as the ruler of Igala and British colonial officials. Along her travels, Ahebi learned to speak numerous languages such as Igala, Nupe, and Pidgin English. Her success and independence helped to redefine sex work in Igbo culture from servitude to a voluntary profession. Achebe furthermore set out to introduce the concept of wife of her deity and extends the analytical category of autonomous sex work as models through which to engage with continuities and change in conceptions of female enslavement, as well as competing and overlapping definitions of prostitution in an African context. Her sex work and linguistic skills gave her access to the Ata Igala, king of Igala land, and the British divisional officer who not only facilitated her return to Enugu, Ezike, but supported her claim to the office of headman, warrant chief, and later Eze, king. Ahebi's rule began a few months after she returned to Igbo land from exile. In the early 20th century, it was a period of the British incursion into Igbo land, and Ahebi used this to her benefit by leading the British forces into Enugu, Ezike, her hometown. Ahebi was the only person in her village able to speak with the British. As a reward of her support, the British invaders installed her as the village headman. She replaced the aged and increasingly incompetent headman Ugu Okegu, who was unable to communicate with the British. Due to her efficiency and continued loyalty, she was elevated to the post of warrant chief, a feat that was contrary to the British policy of female political exclusion in colonial Nigeria. The British discreet officer W.H. Lloyd said Ahebi was a lady of influence and power. She was intelligent and of quiet disposition, and when she does speak, it was usually to the point and sensible. Ahebi Ugbabe became king of Enugu with the aid of the Ata, ruler of Igala, whose power spread to northern Igbo territory, upsetting the gendered politics in her culture. She performed female masculinities as ruler, and she surpassed all male political hierarchy and authority. Although Ahebi commanded the respect of her people, she sowed seeds of resentment by conscripting forced labor and imposing a census and a British tax. Igbo culture did not allow for humans to be counted. This census caused the Women's War in southern Igbo land. At first, Ahebi easily quelled whatever resistance existed in her kinship because of her British backing. Ahebi amassed wealth and power, but ultimately fell from grace when the extent of her multiple gender and power transgressions became too much for her community. She overreached engaged in ambition and violated traditions more by attending a spiritual masquerade ritual with her own mask. This ritual was only for men. The male elders and she cultivated an aura of mysticism to solidify an image of an all-powerful rule. She also used pre-colonial traditions to push this mysticism and power. She also used this to augment agenda to effectively make herself king. Another way that Ahebi asserted herself as a man was that she collected multiple wives, many of whom were runaways from abusive husbands. She also had multiple servants who would help her. These wives would bear children to continue Ahebi's name. Before she died, she performed her own burial rites. She did not trust that her society would accord her a befitting burial. She intended to perform the rites in such a magnificent manner that her society would never forget that an incredible being such as herself had lived. Her living funeral included gunfire, animal sacrifice, and music of remembrance. She died in 194. Although she was a woman, she was buried according to the local customs for burying men. Regardless of her fears of not being properly commemorated, she is worshipped today as a goddess in her mother's hometown and is mentioned in numerous Enugu Ezike songs and parables. Thank you for staying with us. Please subscribe to the channel and follow our platforms on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.